Hi there, and welcome back to another episode at Station Road. Now, today is, of course, a special video relating to my wee experiment with the Metcalfe building / card kit. So it's been exactly a week since I cut the Metcalfe building in half with the handsaw, much of course to many folks' horror, and set the buildings up outside to weather the elements. So as we know, one was spray painted in a clear matte varnish and the other one was left all a la naturel. So over the past week I've been recording on a daily basis the deterioration of these two buildings, and surprisingly both buildings have been affected by the elements. So without further ado, let's just jump over to the footage that I recorded for each day. Right, so it's now day 2 of this wee experiment. So we're roughly 24 hours in, and last night there was quite a downpour, so I got up quite early this morning in the fear that maybe these are completely destroyed, and there is clearly some warping going on with, interestingly, both of the buildings, although I feel that the uncoated version has warped more. Now, one of the things I did notice early this morning, of course, was the water had beaded on the coated building, and of course it had soaked in on the uncoated building. Another interesting aspect was the MDF was soaking on the uncoated side, and it had dried out on the coated side, of course, because I'd sprayed that as well. So we've got a nice sunny day today, and I think these are pretty much dried out since this morning. But interestingly, on this coated building here at the end, the wall has actually detached and come away from the roof. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to stand up, and of course this is the coated one, so whether or not I didn't seal that properly. But of course the other thing is I didn't actually construct these buildings, so I'm unsure as to what glue was used to assemble these buildings in the first place. And if it was PVA, then of course we know PVA tends to return to its original state if it's wet, unless it's one of the special waterproof PVAs. So yes, we've got this warped wall here, and there's some warping going on here where the card is all fluffed up. That's starting to warp away. We've also got some warping here on this one, and this is the uncoated building, and the card is starting to peel away. And then if we look over the top here, and if I can get an angle, we can see that this wall is starting to bulge as well. So yeah, so that's 24 hours in, and in some respects the deterioration is kind of comparable between the two. So I'm now actually beginning to wonder whether varnishing Metcalfe buildings or card kits does actually make any difference. I guess time will tell. Right, so we're now on day 3 and 48 hours in, and it's looking even more interesting, and I'm wondering whether this entire outdoor test is somehow flawed. because the uncoated building is looking in a little bit better shape than the coated building. So we've still got the bulge here in the front wall of this building, and we now have some curling up of the card on the coated version, so the roof is starting to curl up, and yeah, it's not what I was expecting. So this is proving to be quite an interesting experiment. So we didn't have any rain last night, and it was reasonably mild. I don't think there was really any overnight moisture or dew. Today we've got quite a nice sunny day. There's a bit of a breeze, and I think it's getting to about 18 degrees today. So as we can see here, that roof is starting to curl up, and of course the wall is given way, and I'm guessing that's probably why the roof is curling up, because the wall has actually given way there and started peeling back. So that's possibly why. I'm very much going on the basis I think that this is just standard old white PVA glue, and of course the moisture has basically dissolved the glue. But as you can see, really the uncoated version is looking in better shape than our coated version. But of course one of the other interesting aspects is really with this bright sunlight, and here in New Zealand we have one of the highest UV rates in the world. It only takes about 5 minutes outside to get yourself sunburnt, so we might potentially see some fading as well. Right, so it's now day 3 and we're 72 hours in. We haven't had any rain today. It was a bit overcast this morning. There was no rain overnight. The wind has picked up a reasonable amount now, but I don't really see any significant change. It maybe appears that the uncoated roof is starting to sort of bulge in an upward trajectory, sort of in a concave type shape, whereas the roof on this side is going the opposite direction in a sort of a convex curve. So don't think there's really a great deal else that has happened here. Apparently, reportedly, a bird tried to dive bomb one of the buildings yesterday, but apart from that, not a lot of change here on day 3. So we're now at day 5 and I think 96 hours in. I hope that's correct. And we've got quite a warm day here. It's 27 degrees, reasonably blustery, warm norwesterly. So once again, there doesn't really seem to be a great deal of change. I think our roof over there is curling up a little bit more, but otherwise I can't see any significant changes. Now with tomorrow there may well be some change, because a southerly is forecast to come ploughing through this evening, and our beautiful 27 degree day today will suddenly drop to 13 degrees tomorrow, and apparently there is a chance of some thunderstorms, heavy rain and hail later this evening. So that could be interesting. Now I know that this is not the kind of thing you would expect to see on your layout unless you model some kind of weather system, but nonetheless I think this is quite fun and I'm really actually enjoying how this is going. So day 6, and last night and this morning was quite a bit of heavy rain as expected. There wasn't any hail though, but I think the building certainly suffered a little bit more water damage, and there's certainly more curling, and particularly the roof on the coated version, and then of course the card on the ends of the building, the shredded card, that's starting to curl quite a bit. But there is signs of some further damage, of course, to the uncoated building as well, as bits of card are starting to peel away. So yeah, last night's southerly blast certainly had an impact, and of course I've had to come out here between breaks and the rain, and it's only about 13 degrees, whereas yesterday we reached 27. So we're now at day 7, and that southerly has more or less cleared away. There was a little bit of rain this morning, but otherwise it's now overcast and the wind has died down. And yeah, there's certainly a little bit more damage going on here, and I think the significant damage is actually appearing to be the coated version as opposed to the uncoated version. So the roof is clearly starting to peel up quite considerably, and the uncoated one is sort of kind of staying intact a little bit. So as you can see, this roof is looking rather warped now, and of course the shredded torn bits of card at the end are starting to warp quite considerably as well. So yeah, the uncoated building actually doesn't look in too bad a shape, but things are starting to come away at the corners here, and the capping on the roof edges are starting to sort of peel away a little bit. So at this stage it's sort of hard to guess really what the outcome is going to be, but of course I'm going to leave these buildings out here for however long it takes for them to really deteriorate. So it could take weeks, could take months. So there we have it. After a week, I honestly have to say the coated building seems to be actually suffering a little bit more than the uncoated building. So my theory is, particularly on the roof of the coated building, because it's got that layer of clear matte varnish on it, of course it will be building up a surface tension on it, obviously when it gets wet, and also when the weather heats up as well. So I can only imagine that the coated surface on the top side of the building, so the actual printed side, is staying as it should, and of course moisture is getting in from the underside, from the back of the card, and that is puffing out and expanding, so therefore it's creating that tension that is literally pulling that card up, and obviously it's just pulled it away from the glue. So that's an interesting aspect. There's something actually to think about when coating your buildings to protect them from, well, mostly indoor elements, but I would say if you lived in a particularly humid climate where there's a lot of moisture in the air, you may actually encounter the card curling. So I guess it's make of it what you will in this particular situation, and I think it's really very much a time will tell how these buildings are going to fare over maybe the next few weeks. So I certainly hope you're enjoying this somewhat unusual exercise, and by me doing this exercise it means that you don't have to do it. So you don't have to worry about taking a building, sawing it in half and putting it outside. Now I know that some folk were really quite devastated with the fact that I sawed a Metcalfe building in half. Now I did actually ask for consent from the building, and yes, the building said yes, I've already been eaten by silverfish, so why not? So it's a big thank you to the building, of course, for donating its structure to the purposes of a scientific experiment. So I'll leave it there for today's video. Do take care, look after yourselves, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.